I am David Moodie. I am reading Chapter 10, The Scavenger Hunt, from the novel Georgia Peaches by Norman Baylis. So I hope you enjoy Chapter 10, The Scavenger Hunt. The morning of the bazaar was quite chilly. Perfect sweater weather, the autumn colours and falling leaves painted a warm background for the day's activities. The ladies of the congregation filled the inside of the bingo hall with traditional autumn decor. Snack tables filled with goodies. The punch bowl was garnished with orange slices and several rows of Dixie cups lined both sides. Orange Hi-C on the left and Hawaiian punch on the right. Hot chocolate and warm cider were being served on the kitchen counter. I know it's killing you to have our annual Halloween party here instead of at your house, Eula, but I'm thinking combining it with the bazaar was a great idea, said Wanda. No, it's all right. Everything's been bizarre since we decided to go snooping that night. And besides, I always wanted to do a pilgrim-themed party, she said. So all us volunteers will be dressed as pilgrims. Everyone else will be in Halloween costumes or just casual, doesn't matter. I just want to see it, that they have a good time. And it may be Devil's Night instead of Halloween, but this way more people are free to come, added Cora. Thea walked over to Eula, who was standing by the kitchen counter. Some of us ladies donated their handmade quilts to the raffle. Have you seen them? Well, they're just beautiful. You know, if this goes off without a hitch, it'll be a personal triumph. It's our biggest act of charity yet. If we can do this, then I'm convinced there's nothing we can't do. Uh-huh. Eula let out a satisfied sigh. Lillian waited for Thea to walk away. Yes, well, it seems to me that Lady Luck has been on our side since that night we found the money. Oh, speaking of luck, I forgot to tell you that Mr. Morrison's family decided to sell his house to pay for the funeral expenses, and since the price was right, the boy should be able to move in next week. That's great news, Cora. Your Carter has been wonderful, the way he fixed everything so the boys could buy the house. Hey, we better get into our costumes before the doors open, said Eula. All over town the participants were collecting the clues. The hunt brought families together, and they were in the past, everyone working as a team and loving it. Eula called the ladies into a huddle to go over the plans for the evening. Now, as the families turn in their items, please make sure they fill out all the information. It's like tagging them for migratory purposes, she joked. Oh, and if there's a particular family you'd like to be assigned to, please let me know. Okay then, let's have fun tonight. Yes. Mr. Ed showed up at the party already in costume, making the ladies laugh with his impression of Miles Standish. They stepped out the back way to smoke. Wanda lit a cigarette, and Ed took off his hat and removed a joint from inside. They both took a few hits before the gaggle of women found them. Ed tossed the roach into the bushes, held in the smoke as long as he could, then blew it up into the air, coughing and laughing. Oh, by the way, I went to visit with my mama out to the home this morning. That roommate of hers gets crazier every time I see her. I was showing Mama my costume when she broke into our conversation. She said she used to like to play dress up. Then she said, when I was a little girl, I used to dress up like my grandma and climb into bed and wait. Then my grandpa would jump out the closet naked and sing, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf? Then Ed laughed and said, Not sure if that little piggy was taking that story to market, but I laughed so hard I was just about went wee all the way home. They all giggled. Oh, Ed, you big storyteller. Thea smacked him on his shoulder. accidentally spilling his drink all over the cuff of his sleeve. "Oh, I'm so sorry." Wanda intervened. "It's okay, I got it. Come on, Ed, before that stain sets in." She walked him to the kitchen sink and pulled his shirt off. Ed stood there shirtless, out of sight from the rest, while Wanda put the sleeve of his costume under the faucet and rubbed it together with some soap. "By the way, I've been meaning to ask, what's a chupacabra?" "Oh, well, it's a sort of hound of hell, or something from Mexican folklore, not unlike the evil Chihuahua," Wanda smirked. "Where on God's green earth? I never heard of such a thing." "Well, me neither," he said, and he leaned in and whispered, "I was dating a good-looking hombre for about a week, dumb as a post, but hung like a donkey. Took me about a week to recover when we finished." Wanda laughed, then looked around in embarrassment, and then laughed again. They heard the ladies critiquing their ensemble on the other side of the kitchen counter. Thea said, "The salesgirl said it's the only color they had in my size, but gray, I look positively ancient." "I'm sure anyone that's seen her naked would agree," whispered Wanda, and they continued to laugh. Wanda leaned down behind the counter and reached into her duffel bag and pulled out a bottle of vodka. She poured some into both of their cups. Reverend Soames walked in, catching her red-handed. He seized the bottle, then poured a little into his cup and handed it back to her and said sternly, "The Lord helps those who help themselves." And then he put his finger to his lips and winked at them. It was about that time that Wheat and Lance were driving towards the other side of town to see how the hunt was progressing. "Looks like everybody's taken all the clues. It was a good idea to build these little boxes. They're so obvious you can spot them from down the road," said Lance. "They look cool, don't they?" "Yeah, Grandma said she wanted to make it easy for everyone. They'll never know how much trouble she goes through to help people." The pastel sunset shone through the jagged black silhouette of the horizon. They parked along the river and got out. Lance looked up at the sky. "What a beautiful night. Let's take a little walk." "Okay, but we should get back soon. Grandma might need some help." Within the hour, Eula was standing just inside the double doors, greeting everyone as they arrived. Cornstalks flanked both sides of the doorways and stage, topping woven baskets full of pumpkins and gourds. Sprigs of autumn leaves jotted out here and there, wherever the ladies could place them. Sherelle Taylor and the kids showed up to help celebrate. "It's so good to see you, Eula. We got here as soon as we could." They all hugged Eula. "We don't get to see you any more now that you're a married woman," said Eula. "Well, I might have more free time soon," said Sherelle. "Kids, go see if Miss Lillian and Cora need help. Evan will be visiting a clinic that's halfway to Atlanta, just to help out a couple of days a week. Maybe we can get together for lunch, or you could come over for dinner. We'd love to have you. I have so much to tell you, and I want to hear how things are going." Sherelle stayed chatting with Eula for a few minutes. Laureen walked in, ignoring them. She walked briskly over to the coffee, where Lillian and Cora were helping. Laureen's big black bouffant was teased higher than usual and pinned on one side with a large floral rhinestone barrette. Her bright red lips and heavily lined eyes appeared rather harsh next to the more subdued natural tones of the pilgrims. She looked at Eula. "I hear she's going to be dishing out the dough tonight," shaking her head. "Just look at her, soaking up all the attention." They tried to ignore her. She sauntered over to Eula. "And just where, pray tell, did you all get your hands on all that cash?" Anger was starting to get the better of Lillian. "This crazy bitch," she said aloud as she walked over to where Eula was standing. "Jealous?" she asked Laureen. "No, it just seems a little funny. that all of a sudden you all have so much money that you're giving it away. Glancing over the crowd in disapproval, to all these people, so I'm just wondering how it all came about. To which Lillian replied, well, I'll tell you, fate's a funny thing. It was like a miracle, like a light from above, and not a red light like you're used to. Yeah, I guess you could say we just kind of fell into it, Cora Sue giggled. Lillian's eyes grew big at Cora's statement. She tilted her head and looked away, indicating to Cora not to say too much. Laureen caught Lillian's reaction and became even more suspicious. Well, this entire thing smells a little crooked to me. Just what have you been up to? Wanda spotted Laureen grilling the ladies and quickly intervened. Why, Chlorine, they said you weren't coming tonight, 'cause you chipped a tooth on your vibrator. The women gasped and then started giggling. It's Laureen, Wanda, she snapped. She's right, Wanda. Chlorine is for killing germs, like the ones in her dirty little pants. Laureen was exasperated and she quickly retaliated. Well, if Eula really wanted to do something worthwhile, she'd have the whole bunch of you locked away in some booby hatch, especially you. Oh, more words of wisdom from the whore of Babylon, sneered Wanda. Look, everybody in town already knows you own the hen house, and under false pretenses. You've been pretending to be so superior, but you're just fooling yourself. So just stop pretending to be so high and mighty. Pretending? That's a laugh. You're the ones pretending. I'm going to find out exactly what's been going on here, and then I'm going to expose you all for the fake bitches you are. Lillian inhaled deeply. Then in a loud voice she said, Cora, get my elephant gun. I'm about to put this cow out of her misery once and for all. Laureen huffed and stormed out. The other ladies rallied around Lillian, asking what it was all about. Ah, she's just being ugly. Well, uglier than usual, sighed Lillian. I need a drink. Outside, Laureen lit a cigarette and walked to her car. She opened the car door and got her purse. She popped a pill and slid down into the driver's seat, then washed it down with a swig from her own little bottle. She stayed there to cool down a bit. The boys returned in time for Thea's performance. The lights were lowered and everyone's attention was drawn to the stage at the opposite end of the hall. Just the tea lights inside the jack-o'-lanterns were aglow. Behind her stood hay bales with more grinning pumpkins. It was a beautiful sight. The spotlight came up gradually and the curtain opened slowly. Thea entered from stage right, already singing, taking center stage, opening the ceremonies with a medley of annual Halloween favorites. Despite her huge ego, her performance was impeccable. After the applause died down, she announced, Well, they say the party doesn't start until the fat lady sings, patting her chest and smiling. And with that out of the way, I would like to thank you all for attending. Are you all ready to have some fun tonight? They responded with loud applause. And maybe you don't know it, but Eula May Cracker is responsible for this entire evening. She's been working non-stop to plan all of this. Her vision for the town to come together here tonight had come to fruition. So they gave her a warm round of applause. Eula stepped up to the podium. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight to celebrate. And a special thanks to everyone who volunteered to help set up and serve. You all look so cute in your pilgrim outfits. Some of these ladies have been baking for 2 days, and my, those cakes and pies look delicious. A few of them have been set aside for the cakewalk. Gesturing towards the dessert table with a large arch of orange and black balloons. Isn't that something? The children were already perusing the buffet, a scrumptious selection of snacks, all arranged in a delectable display, focusing their attention on the sugar cookies that were baked into the shape of bats, pumpkins, ghosts, and autumn leaves. "So, when you all have finished filling out your information and have turned in the items that you've collected for the hunt, please help yourselves to refreshments," said Eula. "And now the Square Dance Club is going to perform a few blue ribbon numbers for us." Then she joined the other ladies that were tending the food area. Wanda tilted her head toward the group of girls lined up along the wall. "That bunch just reeks of desperation. That is so sad. When you're that age and a church dance is your last resort, it's pretty hopeless." Yeah. That's what Mama used to call naturally pretty," nodded Eula. Wanda smirked. "Yeah. Hair like golden wheat and eyes like a young potato." They said in unison and both laughed. "You remember what's her name?" asked Eula. "You know the old widow that lives alone in the big blue house? Never goes out, just sits all alone eating cat food out the can. Well, that's going to be them in about 15 years from now." "Maybe we could just fix 'em up with some of the single men from another parish," said Eula. "Huh," declared Wanda. "Slim pickings. The only single men are old enough to be their daddies." "Who cares?" said Eula. "Anything's better than sitting alone eating cat food out of the can." "Hey, let's put her name down as a prize winner," she added. "Who?" asked Wandaloo. "Ruth Ann. Ruth Ann. Oh, why can't I remember her last name?" Eula stuck her tongue out and held it on her bottom lip as she tried to remember. "Well, just put her name down on the list. It'll come to me." "How are we going to explain that she isn't even here?" "Well, I'll just say that everyone in town was entered and her name was picked for the honorary prize. Attendance is not required to win, like an absentee ballot thingy. You know, the last time I saw her, she was still wearing her long brown hair straight down her back, with a bow at the top." Eula went on. "She's living in her own little world now, and except for the powder blue eyeshadow that she smears on those thin, almost transparent lids, she hardly wears any makeup. Hardly any makeup at all, like a fragile baby bird. Only moments from death. So sad." Eula shook her head in disappointment. Carter Campbell finally appeared, planning to spend the weekend. He explained that he went to check in at the local motel. Then he whispered, "They said my bill had been taken care of. Did you do that, Cora?" When the dancers had finished their show, the dance floor was officially open. "Let's dance," he said. Once on the dance floor, Carter extended his hand to meet hers. The very touch of his skin gave her butterflies. He looked directly into her eyes. Putting his opposite hand in the small of her back, he pulled her closer. He led her around the dance floor, confidently sweeping her off her feet. He was not holding back as he did when they first met. She was floating on air. As far as she was concerned, they were the only two people in the world. Some of the less attractive girls sat together, waiting to be asked, popping their bubble gum and twisting the ends of their hair around their fingers. Watching Carter all dreamy-eyed, Carter and Cora danced several numbers before stopping to get a drink. A romantic slow song came on, allowing them to cuddle. He spun her outward, then back into his arms, so that she was facing away from him. Carter leaned in for a kiss. It was warm and romantic. Cora's head was swimming as they swayed to the music. It was the first time she'd felt this close to a man. "Let's get some air," he said. "Okay, I'll get my sweater." They walked off into the night, holding hands, and talking about the possibility of him moving closer so they could be together. They sat kissing in the gazebo in front of the town hall. I love you, he said.
Oh, Carter, do you really mean that?
Yes, it's all I can think of. She melted into his arms.
I love you too.
She laid her head on his chest. He held her silently in his embrace for some time before they walked back to the party. Hey, has anyone seen Cora and Carter? Asked Lillian.
No, replied Eula.
She's probably letting him taste her peach cobbler, smirked Wanda. Earlier, when Lorene was in the parking lot, she noticed someone behind the bushes, looking in through the windows. She said to herself, "What do we have here?" She crept over to get a closer look. To her surprise, it was someone dressed as a scarecrow. But almost everyone was dressed in costume, so it never crossed her mind that she might be in trouble. She startled them by saying, "What the hell are you up to? The party's inside, not that you—" Before she could finish, the dark figure turned and hit her in the face, knocking her out cold.